All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining me again here for the next edition of Moving Beyond the Coronavirus Economy series. And one of the things we like to focus on as we get started on this is just talking about what's happening in the world today in terms of just more macro trends in the US economy and how that's impacting franchise marketing, franchise sales. And we're also going to go over and review some data from the franchise world as well and talk about how that might be impacting current franchise sales, current franchise trends, and all the things that are going on there. So I am going to share my screen here in just 1 second so that we can take a look and start going through these things. So let's see. All right. So if you've joined us before, you know that I really like, as we start, I like to start with what's happening on a macro level. And we look at some macro reports. So this is from the Institute for Supply Management. This is their most recent report for the month of August. This report came out. And this is the manufacturing report. And so manufacturing grew in August as the manufacturing PMI registered 59.9%, or 0.4 percentage point higher than the July reading of 59.5%. The manufacturing PMI continued to indicate strong sector expansion in U.S. economic growth for August. 4 out of 5 sub-indexes were in growth territory. And as a reminder, a reading above 50% indicates that the manufacturing economy is generally expanding. Below 50% indicates that it's generally contracting. So it's not a steadfast, always true kind of a rule. But what you can see here is that 59.9% growth, still looking very solid here for manufacturing. As we like to talk about, what does that mean? Well, when you're talking to franchise prospects, when you're talking to franchise marketing people, what this means is it tends to be a leading indicator on where the economy in the US economy is going to be in 6 months, a year, 18 months, maybe even 2 years from now. So seeing this steady growth is a very good sign for really any industry. So just something to keep in light when you're talking to prospects, your marketing people. These are things that you could be talking about to your franchise candidates to let them know, hey, if you're worried about the economy, here's some data. I didn't make this up. Here are some things that you can use that professionals and experts use to help give an assessment to see what's happening. And for validation and kind of proof of concept here, I know that the pandemic was kind of the when that happened. I talk about this every session here, but just as a reminder, when you talk about this with your franchise candidates, you can see that back in 2019, around July or August of 2019, that the manufacturing sector dipped below 50%, which generally means that it's contracting, which means it's going down. Well, as we could see, then when the pandemic hit, it looked like it was starting to recover maybe in January, February, but it might have indicated that the economy was slowing or potentially contracting anyway. And then boom, the pandemic pops and we see the contraction and we go into a short recessionary period that we encountered. Then it drops and then it pops back up. And so you can use this to help give you some ideas. Now, let's take a look at the second report that's produced by the Institute for Supply Management. And this is for the services sector. So we are primarily a services-driven economy here in the United States. And in August, the services for PMI registered at 61.7%, which was a 2.4 percentage point decrease compared to the figure in July at 64.1%, which, by the way, the July reading was the highest, the composite index's highest reading since this report started back in 2008. So in almost 13 years of doing this, the highest recorded reading was in July. So we're coming off of that high mark, and it's still very high for services. This reading indicates the services sector's that it grew for the 15th consecutive month after 2 months of contraction and 122 months of growth before that. So again, just give you another little reading here. And this is the third report from the Institute for Supply Management. And this is on a hospital index, which is their newest report. And it shows that the hospital PMI registered at 60.4% in August, decreasing 2.4 percentage points from the July reading of 62.8%, indicating a 15th consecutive month of growth. The business activity index decreased in August compared to July, and the new orders index increased slightly. The employment index remained in contraction in August. The case mix index increased to 56%, up 3 points to the July reading. So this is the nation's hospital supply executives that they're interviewing here. So you can see the trend lines that are going on there. So this is from a broad macro economy, what's going on. Well, let's talk about small business and see what's going on with the small business sector. So this is the report that's put together through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. This is their Q3 2021 survey and kind of sentiment index that they put together. This started back in 2017. And this analyzes what small businesses are thinking and feeling and what's going on. So in this survey, they said, first, how would you rate the overall health of your business? And I thought this was a very good one to see and show. So we look here for Q1, this farthest reaching sign here. I'll zoom in a little bit on this. Hopefully this makes it a little easier to see. And you can see on here that the highest ranking, which is about 30% of the respondents, said that the overall health of their business is somewhat good, which is the second best response. The 27% said it's about average. 23% said it's very good. 15% said that it's somewhat poor, and only 5% said it's very poor. So if you look at this, that's showing that 80% of the respondents are indicating that either that the health of their business is average, somewhat good, or very good. So it's saying, hey, 80% are saying we're normal or better. And so only 20% are showing that it's somewhat poor or very poor, to see those numbers. And you can see these trend lines as they've gone over each of the last many quarters since 2017, what that looks like. So let's jump into employment. And I want to show you this chart here, which is oh no, that's not what I want to show you first. This is the one I'm going to show you first. Now, this report came out in August 11th of 2021. So it is about a month old, but I just think the chart is fantastic. Let me see if I can make this show a little bit better. This is from Statista.com, and it shows U.S. job openings hit record high as workers quit in droves. And so you can see here, this blue line is the number of job openings. Look at that soaring here. And then we can see the quits is the red line, and layoffs and discharges is the yellow line. So look at the number of openings just increasing at a huge rate there. Probably not a big surprise to folks to know and see that's what's going on. And if you're trying to hire people, you know the challenge that's going on right now. You see this red line, this is the number of quits. And these are people, by and large, from my understanding, from what I've gathered in resources that I'm reading and looking at, by and large, these people are coming from current places, and they know that they can leave their job or quit and go find another one literally in a few days and get a better offer or better benefits or better something that they're looking for. So they have that opportunity to do that, especially in the non-college graduate category. Just to show that what's going on. And then the yellow line, that's just layoffs and discharges. And you can see that trend line here down at the bottom, that is the last year or so, all of 2021 is continuing to reduce and go down. So let me read here for this is for unemployment claims. This is from the U.S. Department of Labor. So this is just from the Department of Labor. This is their report that was released on September 11th, or no, it was released today. I'm sorry. Look at that. Talk about timing. It was released less than 4 hours ago here. So in the week ending September 11th, the advanced figures for seasonally adjusted claims was 332,000, an increase of 20,000 from the previous week's level. The previous week's level was revised 2,000 from 310,000, and the 4-week average was 335,750, a decrease of 4,250 from the previous week's revised average. This is the lowest level for this average since March 14th of 2020, which, if you recall, was about a day or two right before the pandemic took hold nationally in the United States. And so this previous week's average was revised up from 500. So it's showing that the seasonally adjusted insured unemployment rate was 1.9% for the week ending September 4th. So you can see the seasonally adjusted claims continues to reduce. This is in number of millions, by the way. This is not a percentage. This is millions of people in this first chart. And then seasonally adjusted insured unemployment in millions here, again, showing how this is steadily declining. So just some interesting information. And then this is one that I wanted to show, which ties back to the number of job openings. And this is the number of employed persons per, number of unemployed persons per job opening, and it's seasonally adjusted. So when you look at this, we look at here, July of 2021, which is the most current data available. This is, by the way, on the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. This is a live, right now, version of this website. But as you take a look at this, it shows 0.8 number of unemployed persons per job opening. So there are 0.8 people for every available job opening. Now, this is number of employed people that should be actively seeking an employment. So there could be people that are out of the labor market that are not considered unemployed by the unemployment rate, but they're no longer in the job or in the labor pool for whatever reason. They stopped looking, they're retired, they're not decided to not work for whatever reason that might be. But what this means is that there are a whole lot of jobs. There are more jobs than there are people available to look for it, which means when you're talking to your franchisees, they probably are already aware of this. So if you're in the franchise market space, marketing wise, maybe even with your franchise broker, or just for your own marketing, might be talking about how you can help them find employees and call to their attention something they might not even be aware about. So if you are in franchise sales, currently in the franchise sales and marketing space, you might be wanting to talk about recruitment strategies. You might not give them your company's or your brand's secret sauce to that yet, but you might say, hey, we have solutions in place that we've been in trials with franchisees and it's working. Or we've been doing X, Y, and Z, and we've been trying new strategies and it's been effective in finding or recruiting, or even maybe at this juncture, retaining your quality staff. Because remember, your quality staff and folks that you have, you want to keep them. As we can show back here on this chart, you see, let me see here. Where did this go? Is this it? No. I don't know where my chart went about that. So sorry, guys, I'll have to come back to that in a minute. Okay, so let's jump into the franchise sales and marketing data. So this is from franchiseinsights.com, and this is a source that we cite regularly, but this is a newly published data that they released, which is really interesting. So franchise portals, franchise lead aggregators, however you choose to call them, sometimes have a love-hate relationship with franchise development professionals and franchise marketers out there. But this is something you need to be aware of here. This is a really interesting study. It was just released yesterday from a mystery shopping program that Franchise Insights ran in August, and they just published this article yesterday. And it says, when you're looking for information on an unfamiliar subject, you might Google it. But what if you don't know what you're looking for, or what criteria to use to compare the choices, or what options are available in a geography or category or price range? How do you satisfy yourself with those options? And that is the role of the franchise directory sites. They organize information about franchises to facilitate discovery and consideration. So I read that first before I'm going to talk about this chart here. So when I zoom in on this chart, the question is, how familiar were you with franchises to which you inquired? Okay, so of all the franchise candidates that they surveyed and asked them, basically they're saying, did you know about that franchise company you inquired about? Well, 10.5% were very familiar, 14% were familiar, 36.8% vaguely familiar, and 38.6% completely unfamiliar. So that shows that 24.5%, if we round up for easy math, that shows that about 25% of people who are looking to buy a franchise were familiar with the brand brands they were inquiring about. That means 75%, or 3 out of 4 leads or prospective franchise buyers, had no clue or very little understanding of what they were actually looking for. So this is not intended to be a pitch for franchise portals and lead aggregators, but it's a reinforcement that this serves as a branding purpose for you. And so according to I'm jumping back to reading this article right here. According to an August 2021 survey of interested franchise seekers, online franchise opportunity directories and their associated mobile apps play an integral role in discovery, awareness, and consideration during the buyer research process. This is in addition to the vital role they play in information and comparison shopping. Online portals provide exposure to the breadth of franchise categories, comparison and options within a category of interest, and introduction and consideration of franchise concepts that may not be familiar. In August 2021, over 3/4 of the respondents chose to inquire about a franchise brand which they had very little or no familiarity prior to the portal visit. The concept was introduced to the prospect during that visit. This is a very high percentage, underscores the unique value of the directory resources in giving introduction and consideration to franchise concepts that may not be on the radar screen of prospects. The sum of completely unfamiliar and vaguely familiar responses in August was 75.4%, consistent with other prior month surveys. So why might the franchise options be unfamiliar? Well, if you're in the franchise space, you probably already know this, but these are among the likely reasons why a franchise buyer might not be familiar with your brand that you're talking about. First and foremost, emerging franchise that has not yet established brand recognition. And this is a space that I work in all the time. So franchise portals are great for getting you in front of people that may have never explored or considered your franchise brand. Number 2 is that your franchise might have regional concentration and a lack of a national footprint. So maybe in your region, in a state, several states, you might have some recognition, but outside of that space, they don't. And number 3, established B2B brands that are just less familiar with 2 companies. So there's been a lot of growth in the home services sector or in B2B business over the last year and a half in franchising. Well, oftentimes those are brands that as a general consumer, you're not familiar with. So how would you ever know that, even for a large national brand that might have 200, 400, 800 franchises? And there are lots of people, most people may not be familiar with it. So what does this mean? Well, really what this means is that if you're a new or an emerging brand, the exposure and lead flow that you're going to get from franchise portals is going to help increase awareness about your brand to these buyers and generate leads that you probably otherwise would have never been able to receive or would have found you independently for an emerging brand, and same for a regional brand, and then for that B2B brand that's just looking to grow and increase. So anyway, I share that with you just because I thought this was extremely timely. It came out yesterday. I think it's a really cool topic to be talking about. Okay, number two that I wanted to show with you today. This is a really cool report that came out. So the top motivations for owning a business for Q2 in 2021. We talked about this data a little bit, but this was just published. It shows be my own boss was almost 90% of the respondents selected that. Income potential, just over 70%. Lifestyle rewards at 55.4%. Side business to supplement income, 49.7%. And tired of climbing the corporate ladder, 37.6%. So that whole idea of franchising where it says, hey, be the captain of your own ship, take control of your destiny, be your own boss, resonates more today, as it is as current or relevant today as it ever has been. And here's what I wanted to show a comparison that this article talks about on franchiseinsights.com, which was, this article was released, where's the date? September 1st, at the first of this month. So here's what I want to show you. Business buyer motivations 1 year later. So it's comparing Q2 of 2020 to Q2 of 2021. So Q2 last year, we know what happened with the pandemic, bam, makes an impact. Well, what's kind of this general buyer sentiment or motivation look like today, a year later, as the pandemic isn't quite in the rearview mirror, but it is slowly starting, it's slowly starting to move past it here. Hence, moving beyond the coronavirus economy series that we're running right now. But Q2 in 2020 is in the blue, and Q2 2021 is in the green. And what's interesting, what you notice here is motivations are almost, the percentages are almost identical from a year ago to today. So the messaging of be your own boss, take control of your own income potential, those are the two big drivers that people that prospects are really interested in and talking about, which it's any seasoned franchise salesperson or franchise marketing person probably intuitively at this juncture would know that just based on their experience. But these numbers help quantify, this data helps quantify it and showcase that that is the case. So as a marketer, as a franchise sales professional, these are the hot buttons you want to be talking about. Remind your prospect throughout the process, hey, you're going to be your own boss. You're going to be able to run this your own way with a proven model and a proven system, or you're able to take control of your own destiny and going through this process and going through that. And this is the third one from the Franchise Insights for sentiment. The Startup Sentiment Index shows record high startup intentions within 6 months. So this is a record high for the report. It shows that startup intentions within 6 months grew to a record of 78.2%. So 78.2% of the people who responded and said that they're thinking about starting up are thinking about doing it in the next 6 months. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means that people are really serious. They are red hot about doing something, about starting that business, about buying that franchise. So now is a good time to be talking about, and in franchise development, just in general, franchise marketing. These are the things that we're starting to talk about with our clients and with our prospects, and why we're doing this webinar here, that you should start talking about with the candidates you're speaking with. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Candidate, here's the situation. The year's coming to a close. We know the holidays are around the corner. Let's keep things moving forward to see if we could get this closed out, before November 1st. Do you think we can do that? Can we make that work in your schedule? That still gives us here about 6 to 7 weeks to get all of the pieces ironed out. And of course, it's going to depend on where that prospect is in the pipeline. Can we get this done before Thanksgiving? Start planting that seed. How about before Halloween? Just start those conversations so that you can start prepping that for an end of year close, and reminding them that a lot, depending on the seasonality of the business, there are a lot of companies that if you're a fixed location retail business, I've worked with clients where spring is a great month. Well, if they're in the retail business, they need to sign now so they can get a lease to be open. They'd be lucky if they'd be open by the spring at this point. So they'd have to move now to do that. Or maybe you're in a painting business, a painting franchise, or some kind of home services. People might be doing work now, or get them signed up for the spring cleaning that's going to be coming down. So understand that startup intentions is at a record high right now. So even if your candidates or prospects are not expressing it, it is on their mind, and the data here supports it. So one other thing I wanted to showcase from here it is. Okay, so this is from the Startup Sentiment Index report. Again, this is the August 2021 report that just came out. And I just like showcasing this. It says, which of these factors will have the biggest impact in the next 6 months on your decision to start a business? So we talked about 78% are looking to start in the next 6 months. But what are the factors contributing to them deciding to start? Like, what is the biggest factor making that go? Well, as expected, the number one contributing factor, which is this left column here, you can see 64.6% of the respondents said the number one factor is funding or access to credit. I'll zoom in a little bit here. The number two factor was the economic climate. And what's interesting, if you can look at economic climate here, it jumped up big time to 37.6%. So this black line here is showing what happened in August. 37.6%. Look, it's the highest number in 1, 2, 3, 4. It's been almost 6 months since it was that high, since the first of the year. Now, I can imagine what contributed to that, right? We can kind of deduce from what's going on in the world with the recent spike in the coronavirus, and number of cases happening, and people a little nervous about that. So I'm certain that that probably is what boosted that number up here. But it's still significantly less than funding or access to credit. So again, if you can help solve that funding or access to credit conundrum that folks are concerned that prospective buyers or startup people thinking about starting up are interested in, that's going to be a big indicator for you. And then we have other factors here that are contributing. Here's the third highest number is other. It's something other than economic climate funding, economic climate funding, the stock market, political changes, regulatory changes, tax law changes. So a lot of these regulatory, tax, political, those are relatively small. The stock market, relatively small comparatively to the funding, and then the economic climate, by far the two largest variables for consideration. So just things you might want to be talking about with your prospects when you're having those conversations, or keeping them in the loop. And the final chart that I wanted to show for today is just keeping track of where we are in terms of the coronavirus. So this report here, this is live right now on the CDC's website. And this shows the average. This red line is the average number of daily cases happening in the US. So this is September 14th is where it's current through. I just pulled this up today. And so it's going to show the 7-day average. So you see this trend. So the good thing I think that we're seeing here is we see, it's not a good thing to see a spike, but we saw that it's starting to reduce here the last few weeks. It looks like a slight increase here, but overall trend, I'm hoping it's looking like it's trending down. Now that's cases. So it's showing we're at a 7-day average new case moving around 145,000. Now let's take a look at daily deaths. Don't mean to get morbid, but we want to see what's going on with daily deaths here too. So it looks like it spiked up a little, increased, went down. We saw an increase here. Hopefully this downward trend continues. Maybe it's just a little up and down, but it really starts that downward trend. That's certainly what we're hoping for, but just things for you to be on the lookout for. So these are things that I wanted to share with you today. I know we have several folks on the line. Are there additional questions that we might have from our attendees? Feel free to raise your hand. I can unmute you. I can unmute you to talk, or type it in the chat box or Q&A. I'd be happy to go through that and answer any questions you might have, or just open this up for discussion. Well, as you're thinking about it, I would just like to thank everyone again for being here. I can tell you that in general, franchise lead generation, now it's the third quarter in franchising. For folks who have been in the franchise space for a long time, most people know that the third quarter is a tough one. It really is. In terms of lead gen, seems to always slow down consistently. Buyers are, on vacation, literally, or sometimes just in their mind, they're planning vacation or coming back from vacation. The franchise candidates are, they're working, they've got families. This is the first kind of vacation season since we saw, since the pandemic started, which, by the way, with lots of people maybe on vacation and traveling, very well could be part of the reason we're seeing maybe some of the spike in coronavirus cases. Who knows? But just things for you to be aware of. And I can tell you, just in general, what we've seen with our own clients and conversations at post Labor Day here, and right around this time period, we're already seeing an uptick in inquiries, an uptick in responses. So all good things, a positive sign as we're bringing the third quarter to a close, and it's going to be starting fourth quarter here in just a few weeks. So it's crazy to think we are zeroing in on the last quarter of 2021 already. So thank you all for being here. I'm not seeing any questions, so appreciate it. We'll close this out as the edition of the Moving Beyond the Coronavirus Economy. If you have not subscribed to our podcasts, please take a look at the Multiply Your Success podcast. We have a weekly podcast that comes out, as well as our Franchise Your Business weekly podcast. By the way, our Franchise Your Business podcast, we will have this entire replay available of this webinar available here next week. And we have some great upcoming guests next week and the following week for our Navigating or Moving Beyond the Coronavirus Economy series. So thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Have a great day. Take care.